Is it time?
Yeah, it's time. It's past time.
I know. Is it time? I think I hit the wrong button.
Good morning. I'm Charlotte Jones, co-host of the John Telford Detroit Show, coming to you every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on WJZZ Cool TV. Also streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Dr. John Telford is a former Detroit Public Schools superintendent, a former world-class athlete, conqueror of Olympic champions, a championship track coach, poet, newspaper columnist, a longtime civil rights crusader, and author of 7 books. Creative Insubordination, What Old Men Know, The Will Robinson Story, The Poetic Prancings of Mad John, The Poet Emperor of Earth, and his explosive autobiography, A Life on the Run. Plus, another upcoming poetry book, Athletes, Activism, and Apple Boughs, a Detroit poetic epic. His books are available on Amazon.com or by calling 313-460-8272. That's 313-460-8272. Dr. Telford has been called a legend and also a lightning rod for controversy, a recipient of the City Council Spirit of Detroit Award and the Joe Louis Foundation Spirit of the Champ Award. He was named Wayne State University's Alumnus of the Year, and a Detroit track is named for him. His email is drjohntelfordedd@aol.com. That's dr.johntelfordedd@aol.com. Dr. Telford also has a show on WCHB AM 1340 that airs on Saturdays at 9:30 in the morning and Mondays at 6:30 in the evening. That's on WCHB AM 1340, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and Mondays at 6:30 p.m. And now, without further ado, I present to you that old native Detroiter, the one and only Dr. John Telford.
Thank you, Charlotte Jones, a.k.a. Char J., author of A Ain't Always for Apple. A Ain't Always for Apple, an erotic adult alphabet book. And you know, I'm wearing the Pershing High School colors today because this past Monday morning, you know, I'm the poet in residence for the Detroit Public Schools Community District, and I went back to Pershing High School this past Monday to read my poetry, and the man who went with me was Reggie Bradford, my old star all-state quarter-miler and mile relay runner at Pershing High School. And it was kind of like old home week. It was like old home week. And it was you know, being in that school just brought back so many memories. You know, I had those kids were horses that I was coaching there then, I'll tell you. I had Spencer Haywood. He was my shot putter. He'd throw that shot, looked like a little baseball in his hand. He threw the thing 51 feet. And I had Glenn Dowdy, you know, who later played for the Baltimore Colts, one of my sprinters. I had, of course, Reggie Bradford, Andre Broadnax, my city quarter-mile champion. And it was just, and having Reggie there was really something. Reggie gave them a little bit of background on that team, because we never lost. You know, we had, in matter of fact, we had 22 dual meets, 22 straight dual meets. We won all 22 of them. And it was just such a trip to be there. And the principal, Brian Tipton, was so receptive, and he was so hospitable, and the teachers were so gracious, and the students, you know, the kids that I recited my poetry to, I was overwhelmed. You know, I've been doing this, you know, for about 3 years, but they were really receptive. You know, they were responsive, and I didn't feel like leaving. You know. But you know, I do this poetry also, you know, in the Downtown Detroit Monitor, and here's one of the old copies of the Downtown Monitor, in which I talked a little bit about my Pershing athletes. One of them I talked about was Reggie Bradford, you know, the great Reggie Bradford. You know, my first wife, Lynn, and I picked Reggie up and drove him up to Ann Arbor after he had graduated, and talked Coach Don Canham into giving him a full ride. And that was kind of a hard sell at the time, because Canham was out of scholarships.
No.
And I said to him, find one. And he said, this kid going to run as fast as you say? I'm telling you, he ran 49 in high school, he's going to run 46 in college. And his senior year he did. So Reggie earned his keep. And he also ran on an All-American mile relay team up there that broke the record. In fact, it stood for about 20 years. But anyway, here's a poem about Reggie Bradford. And you know, we're going to be interviewing my boss on this show today. We're going to be interviewing Roger Penzabene, and he's going to be talking about some of the things he's been doing. You know, I've done so many shows with Roger, and so has Char. But today we're going to actually have him, you know, in front of the microphone. So this is going to be an interesting show. But let me do this poem about Reggie Bradford. I call it Rare Realist Reginald. Some would surely deem this strange. Reggie Bradford lost a shoe at the final stick exchange. It raised a hell of a hullabaloo. But with his customary flair, he won the race with 1 foot bare. And you know, that team, they were state champions, and some of the kids that were on that team, and I'm kind of, you know, stalling until Roger gets in here, but some of the kids that were on that team were also on the basketball team that was coached by the great Will Robinson. And I was privileged to be on the faculty with Will Robinson when I had my state champion track kids, and he had his state champion basketball team. But they were some of the same kids. Glenn Dowdy, you know, who later played for the Baltimore Colts. Paul Seal, who later played for the Houston Oilers. Reggie Bradford, made All-American in Michigan. No, Reggie wasn't on the basketball team. That's right. He didn't play basketball. But that was, and we have just been honored with the presence of Roger Penzabene. He has just stepped in here, and he's sitting in his chair in front of the camera, and we are going to, Roger, tell us a little bit about yourself.
First, I apologize for being late. I was waiting for you to introduce me in, but that's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I was saying you were on your way. You were coming, you know.
So you should tell about myself.
Who is Roger Penzabene?
Yeah. Who is Roger Penzabene?
I forget sometimes.
I forget who I am sometimes.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
I tell the same. I'm trying to figure out how to say this different than I always do. But
say it the same.
Story, so
say it the same as you always do, you know?
Yeah, it's okay. You know, maybe it's just me. Born and raised in Detroit, West Side. Attended for the first part of my life parochial schools, you know, private parochial schools, mostly Catholic, but went to Waldorf, Cranbrook for short periods of time.
Wow.
And other auxiliary educational centers like Heritage House, etc. Born into a musical family. My dad was a celebrated writer and producer at Motown.
Wow.
Hitsville. He signed his contract right out of high school, almost out, maybe a year out of high school. He and my mother graduated from Mumford. And my dad worked at Ford for a short period of time, and he signed his contract at Motown when he was just on the cusp of 20 years old. And he wrote a bunch of hit records.
Can you name a few?
I Wish It Rang, You're My Everything, I Could Never Love Another.
Wow.
Save My Love for a Rainy Day. a bunch more.
Some big ones.
Yeah, and my mom was a writer at Golden World and Don Davis's record company. I forget the company now. I'm so, dead in this so many times. But anyway, he went on to found First Independence Bank. But yeah, she owned a real famous jazz club in Detroit called the Jazz West in the early to mid 70s. It was right next door to Watts, Mozambique. But anyway, so I've always had music people around, from behind the scenes people, writers and producers like Barrett Strong and Ivy Joe Hunter and different people like that, but also lots of people who will be more known, name recognition nowadays. Back then, I don't know. I was a kid. I guess I knew who they were, but some of them became Hall of Famers and things like that, like George Clinton, the Barcades, and all those people. My mother used to host different parties, and all the, Detroit was a music mecca back then.
It's becoming that again, and they're renovating Motown. I think they're doing all kinds of things over there.
So
one of my friends is the education director. I'm not sure exactly what he is now, but name is Ben. I was co-teaching poetry with him over at Southeastern. But anyway.
Yeah.
They're talking about you, not
yeah, but like I was saying, so I said that to say that sometimes, in a humble way, sometimes this gets to be monotonous for me.
Because you used to.
Yeah, because all my life. So I don't get excited about celebrity and things like that, and people think I'm being a little off-putting or funny style. It's just normal to me.
We should interview him though one of these days. Now I mentioned his name just for a minute. It's Ben Piper, real bright young kid. He's a musician and all that good stuff.
It's lots of talent of every kind of the arts in Detroit and the metro area, and that's what I was saying. All those people used to be around my house, either hanging out socially or friends with my mom, or she was friends with wives of a lot of the male guys that was performing in groups around Detroit, and a lot of people, like to this day, is some young up and coming people, especially in jazz, who I'll drop a few names in a minute just to plug them. But yeah, so did all that growing up in Detroit in the 70s, coming of age. It was a different type of city back then. It was a different world back then, and I kind of strayed the path of doing the right thing.
We all did at one time or another.
So I became like a bit of a knucklehead and a villain. So that's my thing now. I try to be more of a hero now these days. Almost 60. And I have grandchildren now, and fortunate to still have some opportunities and blessings in my life that I'm trying to maximize and capitalize on now instead of squandering them like I did in my youth. So I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I think anybody who was born in Detroit at any time, but especially during, coming of age or being an adult in the 70s, it was a lot of opportunities and different paths to go on, whether it was music or sports or politics or business or even street life. Detroit always had it, and I guess I can even go to faith-based things. We have a lot of big-time preachers and gospel artists that came out of Detroit. So
Yeah, church on every corner. You know, we should be the holiest city in
Still a church on every corner. There's a liquor store and a church on every corner.
Pharmacy. There's a pharmacy too.
You're watching WJZZ Cool TV live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you, Charlotte Jones, for that fine station identification. Charlotte Jones, author of A Ain't Always for Apple. And we are interviewing Roger Penzabilli today. You know, this is a special treat because usually he's on the other side of the camera, you know. But we're interviewing him, and, you know, Roger also is in charge of a group called the Highland Park Chamber of Commerce, whereof I am one of your advisory board members. Whatever motivated you to be taking all that kind of grief by heading up that Highland Park?
No, I like how you said in charge. Yeah, I wish I was in charge. But no, my actual title is Chairman CEO. And so I'm back as the chair now. So what happened with that is I went to Highland Park, and I've been always in and out of Highland Park all my life, literally. And my family's always been invested in Highland Park. And then as an adult, I got invested in Highland Park, having a piece of property there. So I always had an interest in wanting it to prosper or rebound from, because when I was a kid, I thought, and we thought, when meeting my peers, all rich people lived in Highland Park. That's how pristine and everything it was back then. So we thought it was, you know, what people see Grosse Pointe as now. That's the aura that Highland Park had then. And so it was a place that a lot of people wanted to live but couldn't. They had racial problems and economic barriers and things like that. But it was overall a nice place. And so wanting to help revitalize that and take advantage of its depression as a business person, because the property was cheap. So I got a Woodward Avenue, a 4,000 square foot, 2-level building, commercial space for a really good price, because nobody wanted to be in Highland Park. But because I kind of know how to speculate and watched a lot of things in Detroit and have good mentors and things, I said I'm going to take a chance, because you can't go wrong being on Woodward Avenue and all this kind of stuff that I came to learn more now, but just instinctively I kind of felt that. And I went there as an entrepreneur to open up a event space, and had to deal with the politics of Highland Park, the corruption at that time with certain people, and anyway, I didn't have any means to fight. They were doing the typical things that they were doing back then to business people, especially if you weren't a Highland Park native. If you were a Highland Park native, then you kind of could write your own script how you wanted it to be, and you just greased the right palms, and they had, like, I my nickname for them back then, I try to curb it now, but I called them the cartel back then. And when I say back then, I'm talking about 2016.
It's fairly recent.
Yeah. Who knew it was that? I mean, who knew it was that bad?
Right.
You know.
And so that, anyway, I went through all of that. Didn't have a means to fight. My attorney said, "Hey, see if the Chamber of Commerce can help you." And I was like, "Well, what? I always heard about the Chamber of Commerce, but never had reason to care or to inquire or learn what a chamber does."
Yeah. What do they do?
It's a non-governmental business conduit. So what a chamber does is try to mediate or referee or be the voice for the stakeholders, the elected officials, and business, and it's especially all business from mom and pop entrepreneurs all the way up to big corporations, global conglomerates. So and then they try to, maintain and sustain the business and the environment that's already there. You try to get business to invest into the community by supporting local charities, by improving parks, by keeping their tax bases there, etc., hiring people from the community. So, and you want to help get the officials who know business. Just that's what the chamber traditionally does.
I can remember when I was still broadcasting from the station on WCHB, I had you on that show.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was when I met you or I was already in your chamber or what, but I remember you came and talked all about that, some of the same things you're...
Right, so it never stops. Yeah. That's the traditional role of the chamber, but I'm going to expedite real fast. So I needed somebody to help. Got turned on to, I should reach out to a chamber, but unfortunately Highland Park didn't have a chamber anymore due to corruption. In the older days, before I got there, the state of Michigan had shut down the chamber that was operating in Highland Park. So they had went like 23 years approximately with no chamber, but they had a business association, which is, I don't want to go into the differences between a business association and the Chamber of Commerce, but needless to say, a business association cannot do or facilitate the types of business that a chamber does and doesn't have the infrastructure, etc. It is not recognized in a way that a Chamber of Commerce. I'm not speaking just for Highland Park's chamber. I'm saying a Chamber of Commerce, period, even if it's in a little small one-horse town.
So you started up a new chamber there.
I had to start a new chamber. I didn't know how. Didn't know anything about parliamentary procedure, corporate etiquette. I had just started learning about parliamentary procedure because I had recently been elected as a precinct delegate in Southfield, where I was living at the time. But anyway, long story short, with the help of a very popular judge in Detroit, who kind of educated me and helped and opened a lot of doors, helped me to put a board together.
Who was it, Judge?
I don't. Sometimes sometimes she'd rather I not put her.
Right.
So just out of respect, because I don't know when is the right time and when is it not. But it's public record. I told the story lots of times. Yeah. So anybody that's curious to know, it's not anything secretive or nothing. It's just
just want to give her a kudos.
Right. That's my intent. But people misconstrue things or whatever, and it's a conflict sometimes. The reason why I will put this on record is nothing. She being involved in Detroit, she doesn't. People have in the past said, well, what's she got to do with Highland Park and all this? So they don't understand the dynamics of business that's separate from the politics and all this. So, but with her help and another guy, Ron Butler, who was a retired executive from Chrysler Corporation, and people forget this too, plug, Chrysler was founded and headquartered in Highland Park as well, and they didn't move out until I think 82 when they opened the Auburn Hills. But Chrysler gets overshadowed by Ford being there, which was founded in Highland Park. And then people, and I had to clear this up as the chamber guy. Henry Ford had two other corporations before Ford Motor Company. So you had
a bicycle company.
Yeah, but he had two other motor companies. The Ford Piquet Museum now was his second corporation that had something to do with automotive. But the Ford Motor Company was founded in Highland Park.
I want to do a poem about Highland Park. It's supposed to be a poetry station.
You say so.
That's what I'm doing. So I'm going to do this poem because it's called Highland Park.
Okay, go ahead.
And I wrote it in 2014. The weeds grow high in Highland Park, out on 2nd Avenue, where potholes pockmark the pavement. 60 years ago, because I wrote this in 2014, 60 years ago, in this city, within a city, because Detroit totally surrounds Highland Park as an enclave, 60 years ago, in the city, within the city, before potholes or weeds, my buddy Swift Cliff stayed by there. Once on a $10 bet, Fast Gaston outran Swift Cliff on that then sleek stretch of street in a race of 50 yards or so, from a corner to a fire hydrant. The next day when I came over, Swift Cliff said to Fast Gaston, "See this white boy? He can beat you from the corner to that fire hydrant." And I did. Cliff and me, we split the $10. And that was Cliff Hatcher, who, held the high school record for 20 years in the quarter mile. He was also my best friend. But you always tell me I should do a different poem.
Right.
So I just did a different one. But we've been talking about Highland Park and the Highland Park Chamber of Commerce, whereof the CEO is sitting right here. Yeah. He wears a lot of hats, this guy, Roger Pennsylvania.
So, after that point where he said it was like weeds on 2nd Avenue, what do you think is the current state of affairs in Highland Park?
Well, okay. So here, that's right. I want to put this on record. Not everything is grim and bleak and corrupt in Highland Park. It's definitely improved since I first went there doing business in 2016. A lot of people know the history before that, so I won't go backwards. Going forward, they have a newly elected Mayor, Glenda McDonald. She's former city council and a mainstay person in Highland Park. And it's a totally new 5-member city council. Mm-hmm. So that could be a two-edged sword because they have no political or business experience, as it were, but that's like a blank canvas to do some new things, and they are younger overall than the past council members. So hopefully it'll be some new ideas and some new ways of thinking. And they're not millennials. So when I say younger, I think this council now averages in their 40s maybe. Versus in their 60s, like that was dominating in the past, 50s and 60s. But it's like a new generation of elected officials in Highland Park, except for Glenda. She's part of the older generation of Highland Park, but she's anchoring it as mayor. So giving her the benefit of the doubt because she just took the reins in January. But you have improvements and physical improvements like Lakeshore Global Corporation is moving their headquarters from Detroit to Highland Park where they found it at. New construction, Means Group is doing a big construction. If you're driving down the Lodge Freeway north, you can look to the right and see all this big construction. That's in Highland Park. That's the Means Group. Then you have the Joe Louis Greenway passing through Highland Park that's scheduled to open up this spring. The bike trails got laid in last year that run down Hamilton. So
some big stars came out of that city at one time. Sports,
Well, some sports.
Reggie McKenzie, Terry Durrod.
Well, even in entertainment, Jackie Wilson.
In politics,
right. John Conyers Sr.
John, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you and jazz, Pepper Adams. So the Big Bopper from, I guess you would remember him more. I know who he was, but
what I remember is Terry Durrod because I was the athletic director in Berkeley when we were number one. Berkeley High School was number one with Bruce Flowers, and we went into UD Stadium, played Highland Park High School, and they beat us, and they snapped our winning streak, and they went on to win the state championship. But actually, the state championship was determined in that game that time. And Terry Durrod shot the lights out. I think he scored about 45 points, and then he later played for the Pistons.
Wow. Go back to answering Shah's question. It's a lot to look for forward to in Highland Park with on the New Horizon, new construction for housing. And as a business investor there, I just hope the politics get to be attractive to business. Well, yeah, they have to be.
Sounds like they're on the move.
Yeah,
Really,
so
that's
but
what
we
it
want
sounds
to make
like.
it attractive for business to move in of every level, not just the big guys, but we really, the chamber, I'm speaking for the chamber now, we want to develop on Hamilton for entrepreneurs, the little guys.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to see new construction, and we definitely want to see new housing go in to raise the economic bar and the tax base through the tax base.
Right.
So it's going. The needle is moving in the right direction. So I'm hopeful and confident in the chamber. It's been rough, not being native of Highland Park. Most of my team and we went through different changes with infrastructure as team members, but it's getting better. So that's what's going on in Highland Park.
Right.
We are going to launch. Is COVID slowed us down from a lot of things, derailed and stalled our plans, but we're getting ready to launch and activate the Convention Visitors Bureau of Highland Park and the Regional Sports Commission. They've never had those things in Highland Park, so we're doing that, and that's part of a long-term plan to attract civic organizations back to Highland Park.
You got to get the schools back.
But you gotta have people to see this conversation is frustrating to me because of course you need schools.
Yeah.
Families are not going to move into a community if their kids can't go to school and can't go to a school that's quality.
Right.
See, it's one thing to have a school and to have a school system, but people have to. It all goes hand in hand. I hear all the time, we got to have schools. You got to have you got to have quality schools.
Quality schools.
You got to have new construction because modern methods and things like that matter. You can't take the old building that's there and fix it up. It's still outdated, antiquated, and won't be as efficient or productive as a new construction. Everything from digital screens for kids to travel the world through the digital and provide things like laptops and tablets so they can compete with the rest of the world. We don't just want to open a classroom and start shoving kids in it. It's got to be some innovation with having a school.
They're tearing down Pershing High School and putting in a brand new school.
You're watching WJCC Cool
Park.
TV, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Like us, follow us, share us, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world.
Thank you, Charjay, for that station identification. And we are interviewing Roger Pensabeni. He's on our side of the camera today. And Roger, I want to ask you this. What's your position in the broadcast industry?
I would say that, but I got to finish my point about the school.
Yeah, okay.
Because this is a big point of contention.
Yeah, you got that right.
Of course, we want to look out for the kids. And part of looking out for the kids is not just providing them a school, it's providing quality teachers. So somebody should put their foots in the butts of whoever is in charge of educating and certifying and all that for teachers, right? Then, as a city, especially a small city like Highland Park, all cities have to do something to appreciate and respect the teaching profession and give teachers a reason to live in your community.
You're talking my language, man.
So when I was a kid in elementary school and even up to high school, most of the teachers and coaches and people lived in. I knew what house they lived in. Yes. I knew their kids. Yes. I knew all that stuff. And we would see our gym teacher in the mornings. He would tell you get off the corner and get to school, whatever, right? So
community.
But you have to attract everybody. So I think. With Highland Park being an independent city and it's small, that opens the door for the the elected officials to do some innovative things and go back to some traditional things. Like if you work in this city, then you have to live in this city.
Right.
Especially if you are on the city payroll. But do something innovative like what the chamber lobbies for in our way. We probably need to be more aggressive about it. It's that teachers should not pay property taxes if they own the home. Right, so that gives people a reason to
Same thing with
buy
police.
and then pay it off. Well, yeah, police,
fire,
safety.
Yeah.
So, but we're talking about kids in the school. The teacher, the quality of the teacher in the actual school and classroom go hand in hand with providing an education for the kids. Then the corporations need to support to have outlets, especially with the arts and sciences, for the kids to expand their opportunities in education outside of the classroom. And sports is cool, but it shouldn't just be sports.
Right.
But it develops a community pride if you got a good sports team.
And I know you're saying that as a sports guy.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, I didn't say do away with
But
the
they had a
sports.
good community college too. We got to get that.
We can't talk about what they had.
I know, but they can't have it again. You got this young group coming up that are leadership, and they got you now in charge of this chamber. You know, this is a model for rebirth.
Right.
You know,
What I stress and what I champion is progress, innovation.
Yeah.
So we can't go. That's why everybody doesn't need to be old. Old people like myself, older than me, need to be anchors in the community, not have a death grip on every position and everything of leadership.
With the antiquated
Take some
culture.
young people who have the ambition and the education and the people skills to lead. Just the old workhorses, the old people who know everything.
So did Yop step down, or did
Yop
he
is
finally
retired.
Oh, he retired. Okay.
He's you know, that's another conversation about respect.
That was the mayor, by the way.
Yop was a 3-term mayor.
Yeah.
And he was a city council member. He was a detective. He was a policeman. He was all those things. And I would say a public servant. When I was a knucklehead in my teen years, coming from Detroit into Highland Park on a destruction mission, Yop was one of the police officers and detectives who used to try his best to gatekeep Detroit knuckleheads from coming in. He had his hands full with the Highland Park, but the truth be told, the Highland Park teams weren't that bad. they compared to what was going on in Detroit, trying to infiltrate and come into Highland Park. So that's part of my own self-redemption. Why I do what I do in Highland Park is because I know what I did to help destroy it.
Oh, wow.
So
let's go, because we got to get to the music part of this.
okay, yeah. I'll get all day when we start talking about the business.
Go ahead,
What is your position in the broadcast industry? And then I have a follow-up question to that. Like, what made you want to go into this
Okay,
business?
so and again, forgive me for just telling this story over and over again. I had a friend, Dwight Jefferson. He was a saxophone player, Vietnam vet, and a stoner, happily a stoner, but he was a militant too. He was a black nationalist militant, like a real Black Panther and all that, but he was a street guy. He wasn't university educated or anything like that, but Dwight was like a confidant and a good advisor, and he was my friend because he was like a jazz encyclopedia. So at that time, all I wanted to do was build my personal jazz playlist. And I used to consult with Dwight, who used to tell me what music I should get and why. And in that conversation one day, we were having, it was about WJZZ, reminiscing about why Detroit doesn't have a jazz station, the world doesn't really have a jazz station, nobody likes jazz and blues anymore. So that conversation was going like that. And that started my wheels again.
Yeah.
The Detroit hustle, the entrepreneur spirit started having my wheels turn. So while I was talking with him, in the back of my mind, I was asking, What did happen with WJZZ? Why don't we have a jazz station of any kind? Why isn't jazz back at the top anymore, right? So we started having that conversation. We were getting together regularly then. I was kind of like just hanging out with him. And about 2 weeks into that conversation, one day he was taking music lessons to play the sax better. And his music teacher was Wendell Harrison, a living jazz legend. I didn't know him at the time. Didn't know anything about him. My jazz knowledge was minute, and that was the point of me talking with Dwight.
Okay.
And Wendell came in one day, and Dwight introduced me to Wendell and told me who he was and who he was in the jazz community and everything. And I later found out how accomplished and legendary Wendell is, and I respect him and appreciate him even more. But from that first meeting, Dwight was like, "Yeah, Roger is talking about getting WJZZ back on the air." And Wendell and I laugh about it now. I tease him because his attitude at that time was kind of summed up by "good luck with that," right? But he made a promise that day because I kept talking about it and telling him what I was working on and why I was confident I could bring it back. And he was like, "Well, if you ever manage to get it, I'll be in your corner to support you," and all of that, which he has been. I called him on it, and he's been supportive ever since, as much as his age and his schedule will allow him, because I think he's 80 years old now, and he's still
old guy, right?
Yeah, he's still active and he's still performing, but he's doing a lot, big things in jazz and performing arts and education. So his schedule won't allow him to participate hands-on, which is WJZZ. But that's what led to it. Long story short, I decided it's best, being progressive with the future, to make it an internet station, because it's so much more economical to deal with internet enterprise and broadcasting than an FCC regulated one.
Okay.
Two, I didn't want any regulation. The FCC is like a old ass lady, a grumpy old man, and all they do is tax you out the butt for nothing, right? So I didn't want to have that headache with oversight and government pimping me and regulating me. And then the other thing was, WJZZ is the world's oldest jazz station. It's iconic. And I said, why restrict that to a local airwave bandwidth when through technology we can go all over the world and be global? So that's what it's about now. And then keeping with the entrepreneurial spirit, we expand it. It's a brand now. We don't just play records. We don't just play jazz music. We produce and promote concerts and live events. We're into all of the arts. Through your help, Dr. Telford, we produce poetry, fine arts poetry too. We do the slam stuff and we do all that. But we do high level poetry, or what some people would call classical poetry.
Brought in some of the best poets in the city.
We deal with all the arts, all the fine arts, and then we support all music. But our focal point is just jazz, and then we do this, which is Cool TV, WJZZ.
Yeah, this is John Telford Detroit
the
show.
Sister station. Yeah,
this is with Char J, and that's the next question, because I want to know, how can folks come and do what I'm doing?
Hold on, let's do this.
Oh yes, time for the last commercial.
I want to know, was it hard to obtain the station?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't hard from a business standpoint. But it was dealing with all the legal things and different contentions, and then just trying. And it's still hard to win over an audience, especially an audience of young people who want to listen to jazz. Then we had the learning curve. To this day, I was at a senior building, a very popular senior building, and they the learning curve to adjust to how to actually
Get on
it and listen. They all want to go to a radio
And turn it
and like me, people offer me CDs and different things like that. I don't even have a CD player. I don't have a DVD player anymore. All that's obsolete to me.
Yeah.
So you're watching the Dr. John Telford Detroit Show, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. I'm sorry, that was funny. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. What was funny is you said they want to turn on the radio, because that's all they do.
And I had to leave out a little bit early because I know we're coming to an end, but I want to mention this.
Well, I got to ask this question.
Let's go.
I think you're going to want me to ask this question. How can folks get involved today who want to come and host a show? How can they do that?
If you want to host a show, your own show that you own and associate, produce, etc., contact us at WJZZDetroitRadio.com. You can go on there and get some information, and you can also, that's how you tune into the station, WJZZDetroitRadio.com, to listen to the music and get on the website.
If they want to advertise, they can do that.
All of that. Or you can go to connect at WJZZRadio.com. So that's the email, or WJZZRadio@gmail.com. If you want to host a show, contact us, say what your concept is, say what you want to do, and we'll go from there. We also have other stations that we'll be reactivating and launching some new ones sometime this month. So business, politics, art and culture, health and wellness, metaphysics, adult entertainment, and even urban stations are about to be here at this location. So if you have any aspirations to host your own show, to be a producer, or even you want to intern to be an engineer of sorts, just contact us and leave your information, and we'll get in touch with you, and then we'll discuss all the options with the business, and I'll give you all the details. And we'll be having an open house here where you can come and see the operation, meet some of the people, and that'll be on March the 14th. You can still sign up for that on Evite, I think, or just leave us your request to be on our guest list, and then we'll get you here on March the 14th from I think
It was 5 to 7?
from noon to 7, something like that. I'm sorry, somebody else helps me do all this stuff, and I had so much to remember. But also I want to plug, we're doing the Legacy Jazz Series at Hotel St. Regis. The newly remodeled is fabulous. That's like the hottest hotel in Detroit right now. And every Thursday we'll be doing jazz, live jazz, featuring a lot of artists, especially local artists, showcasing them to the world. And so you can get tickets on Eventbrite for the Legacy Series. We'll be there every other Thursday, so twice a month. And we'll be back to kick off the series steadily on the Thursday, forget the date, but the second Thursday in March we'll be back. I think that's the
same day, right?
Yeah, I think that's the 14th or something. I'm not sure, but anyway, just check on Eventbrite for Detroit Legacy Series. And lastly, before I get out of here,
what time do you do those series? What time does it start?
7 to 10. The band goes on at 8. But we try to have a social mixer and a lot of stuff afterwards, afterglow and all of that. And the tickets range from $15 to $25 depending on the artist. And lastly, we're going to be doing this social networking thing at a private upscale club called High Society, and that's on Eventbrite as well. So look up the WJZZ Jazz after dark, I think it is, but it's at High Society. That's on Eventbrite as well. And I'm fumbling around with my productions and plugs because.
Well, I want to ask you this before you fumble into the other room. How can people get a hold of you?
Get a hold of me here. Come here and get a hold of me. If you don't already have my number, then get with somebody who does. I'm not going to give out my number on the
That's too soon.
public airway. But anyway, you can always find me here at the station
Facebook.
or through social media under my real name or the contact information I gave, or you can come to the studio. We're at 5470 Shane, right at the corner of Ferry. We're upstairs, downstairs.
5407.
5470.
07.
No, 70.
Man, I've been telling everybody 07. 5470.
That's why they be
I
getting
just got educated today. I've been here about 5 times.
But I'm going to get out of here and let you close out the
joining
show.
us.
Yeah, so anyway, I appreciate everybody tuning into the station, WJZZ Detroit Jazz Radio. I'm sorry, WJZZ DetroitRadio.com. I was given the full corporate name. I'm used to somebody else doing all this stuff. WJZZ DetroitRadio.com is how you get to the website and how you listen to the station.
The radio, JZZ.
Yeah.
Say it again.
WJZZ DetroitRadio.com.
Okay.
You got announcements that you missed?
Probably do, but before that, I just want to say we have been interviewing Roger Penzabeni, who is the owner of station WJZZ and
Cool TV.
WJZZ Cool TV, and he's been talking about a lot of things today about his position with Highland Park Community College.
Nope. Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, did I? Dear, man. I'm glad I got you on the station, man, because you always catch me when I make these dumb mistakes.
That's okay.
I know it's my...
What you got? We got something real quick?
Well, you know I got something real quick, and you know what I'm going to say, because I want to see this sucker in jail, and I'm going to say, yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
I will bet you $1. $1 that will, at some point, I just hope I live to see it, being 87 years old. All right, okay. I wrote this poem on January the 6th, 2021, on the occasion of the takeover that Trump fomented of the Capitol building. On this evil and fatal occasion of the Capitol building invasion, the traitor Trump's collusion demands his execution. God yet hasn't pushed the lever on the traitor Trump forever. And when he does, it's to be hoped it's the lever of the gas chamber. But if it isn't, let's at least see the sucker in prison.
Good show.